Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So for today, what I wanted to do is talk about the whole Gabriella situation in regards to fat acceptance, in regards to her honestly getting canceled by Fat Acceptance TikTok for simply stating the obvious fact that being overweight is not healthy. So I think that people in the movement, they were particularly threatened just because she said it in a way that was so relatable. She was talking about how a lot of people in the fat acceptance movement, they essentially rely on looks to get through the day. Like they kind of talk about how they are still able to do stuff with guys. I'm not trying to be I'm trying to be pretty, YouTube friendly here. And how they use that to justify their size, and that it doesn't matter essentially because somebody's interested in them, or people or guys are interested in them. And then she just talks about how she feels some guilt over kind of being a part of this movement, maybe even without realizing it, maybe not, right? But she didn't think that it would get this far. I think that a lot of us, I think I'm probably closer to her age than Gen Z, that generation. And a lot of us, what we went through in the 2000s, it was just a lot of constant fat shaming, or it was a constant conversation. And I think when we got to the 2010s, we just wanted that to stop, because a lot of things that had to do with being fat, there was such a social order back in the day. And it's really hard for younger people to understand that. Before the internet and before social media really took over, a lot of societal norms and stuff were very, very, very strong. Extremely strong. And I don't know why, but they got sort of unattainable or ridiculous in the 2000s in a lot of different ways. And I think during the past decade, we've really experienced the sort of backlash or whiplash effect of a lot of those expectations, which now you have extreme opposite expectations. Instead of acknowledging the health risks of being morbidly obese, you are now supposed to consistently praise being morbidly obese, which is very, very, it's the exact opposite. It's equally ridiculous in a lot of ways, maybe even worse. Whether you're trying to lose weight in a way that is unhealthy or you're continuing to gain weight, you're still unhealthy regardless at the end of the day. So I think when she talked about this, it upset a lot of people. I saw this one particular cope where she was just just because you have health problems doesn't mean that everybody does. And it's I think a lot of people with any ED, they are not honest with themselves about the effects it's having on their health until they're starting to get better. So it's it just doesn't, it rings hollow. When I hear somebody who's overweight saying, I'm so healthy, I'm so amazing, I'm doing great, blah, 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 look at how beautiful I am, right? All these things. It's very obviously not real to me. As somebody that does experience it, and I don't know why, but they're very, very upset about people pointing this out. And they say, oh, it's because you're increasing fat phobia if you say this kind of thing. You're really letting people know that, you're projecting it. You're projecting your experience onto every other fat person, and that's not healthy, and blah, blah, blah. But I think that Gabriella, she is just trying to warn people about the health risks, and she's trying to help encourage younger generations to not just dive in head first into morbid obesity. A lot of us, from an older generational standpoint, we reached a state of morbid obesity through a lot of serious trauma. I sat down last night and I was trying to film a video just describing my fat history, just how I got fat. And there were so many traumatic events and just so many issues for me specifically that had to do with my identity and just everything that had lined up with, and like family issues, substance abuse in my family, like all these different things that I just was like, oh gosh, like the scope of this video is like going to a whole other level. And it was just really, really difficult for me. I was talking for almost an hour and I was like, okay, this is weird. Like, I don't even know if people would be interested in that sort of thing. And I don't know if I want to put this all out there. So I had to stop. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same for someone like Gabriella, because back in those days, it was not encouraged to be this big. So if you were this big, it was for a reason. I don't know if that's true anymore, because a lot of things nowadays, it's just that the rhetoric around this stuff is that health is not important. People, having any standards of size or health are unhealthy or awful. Any attempt at looking at what kinds of foods you're eating or how much is an ED by today's standards. So I think that, in a lot of ways, the obesity crisis, it's fueled by multiple aspects. It's fueled firstly and foremostly by a failed medical system, and secondly by a failure of culture. Because a lot of how we eat and a lot of how we view our bodies is cultural. And something like fat acceptance TikTok, which I think a lot of people don't understand, why do you talk so much about it? I mean, they kind of understand, but some people may not. And the reason why I talk about it is because it has become a huge cultural force and it needs to be dismantled. It needs to be fought. And I think it especially needs to be fought by people who are of size, as they would say. Because I am not going to lie to younger people. I'm not going to tell them that it's healthy, that it's amazing, that it's fun. It's not. Even when you're in the throes of binge ED, it's scary. When you feel so out of control that you feel like you're going to pass away. It's like you become terrified of your own body in a way. You become terrified of your own desires, your own, just all these different things. And people have very, very unhealthy coping mechanisms. And like I said, I myself, I've had a lot of trauma in my life. And once you develop this BED as a coping mechanism, it's incredibly difficult to break, because you have to change your whole life. Essentially, you have to get out of a bad situation, and then you have to heal from a bad situation. Then you have to, I would suggest doing what I do, which I do the thyroid protocol. That helps my nervous system calm down, right, and kind of recover from a lot of this trauma rather than keeping it in a hypervigilant state. So there's a whole lot of layers to this, but to just encourage people to become bigger, to encourage younger people to not care about it at all is so awful. I cannot imagine something worse. I am telling you guys, I would never want any of you to go through what I've gone through. It's not fun. And the fat acceptance community flipping out on Gabriella just because she's talking about it in a pretty lighthearted, not super nasty way, and they call her fat phobic for that, that shows that this is not just a fat acceptance movement, but it's a fat enforcement movement. They are enforcing people to stay fat. They want people to stay silent. If you are in an open, free space, you are able to talk without being canceled constantly for every little thing. The fat acceptance movement is not accepting. If you do not line up with their dogma 100%, they come after you. And it's just really, really toxic. It's really sad. I was just looking at her Instagram feed before I filmed, and she's just showing typical, normal, relatively healthy eating. Like, she's having like shrimp fried rice. She's having, she's cooking her own food. She's doing some workouts and stuff. Like, this isn't anything crazy. This is very, very typical. And, even on my channel, I was talking about what I was doing, and I had people that were very upset about what I was doing, or, trying to convince me not to or something. I don't really know what the point was, but I don't even think it's just fat acceptance people. I think it's just society in general. They get very weird about overweight people trying to be healthier. And so I just wonder, I understand if something is incredibly radical, like if you're just saying to never eat, for example. But when you look at like the diet sphere online, the two most popular diets, probably three now, are keto, carnivore, and vegan. Those are all extremely radical diets. You're cutting out entire food groups indefinitely, forever, and just being told, it doesn't matter. But when I talk about my thyroid protocol, which is not very restrictive by those standards, it is restrictive by corporate, prepared food standards, absolutely, because you have to actually cook and put effort in to your food. But it's like when I see what Gabriella is eating, it's very typical. It's not radical. It's not crazy. It's just normal foods where she's probably having less of these chemicals in her food. I would have my suggestions for her if she was ever interested, but she may not be interested. She's doing okay. I'm not here to judge, really, as long as it's working for her. I talk about what I talk about just because a lot of people that have done the sort of typical healthy eating, it hasn't worked. And that should be okay. And I don't understand why people are constantly threatened by people trying something different for themselves. I was accused of being a snake oil salesman. And it's like, how am I a snake oil salesman when I'm not selling anything? At least not at this point. Maybe in the future I will. I don't know, but probably, right? But that would be years down the line. I'm not selling anything right now. Like, people are just really paranoid in general. And I think it's like, I don't understand why. Like, I don't understand how what Gabriella is doing is threatening just having rice, shrimp tacos, right? Just typical stuff. She's getting stuff at Trader Joe's. She's just eating relatively healthy. Why is that threatening? And then why is it, I'm sure it's threatening to people that have very strict diets as well. And it's just insane. And I saw this with Glitter and Lasers too, where she tried to lose weight and stuff. She tried to get healthier. She got massive attacks from the fat acceptance movement. And then she also got attacked by people who were, pro-weight loss or supposedly pro-health. And from what I could see now, Glitter and Lasers has not made any progress. And that's what I see. I see this culture of fat enforcement, this culture of you must stay fat. People are very threatened by people changing at all. And it's like, I don't know if it's just the overall stress of society, if it's that people expect fat people to be a sort of constant in their life that doesn't change. But it's not healthy. And I know a lot of you guys care and a lot of you guys want to help and that kind of stuff, and I'm all for it. I'm very, very supportive. The best people are the actual pro-health people, the people that want people to get better. Those are the best. I always talk about the people in my comments that are going into the medical industry or that are wanting to make certain changes to have this issue resolved. I will always say, if you want this issue resolved, you are with me. If you don't, then you're not. And I will fight against you, period. So when I see someone like Gabriella trying to better her life, I see the response to it, I see all these different things, it really pisses me off. So I think that people need to stop doing all this stuff. They need to, if they don't know, then just be quiet. You know what I mean? Because you don't know if it's working for her. I saw one of her TikToks where she said she had lost like 45, 50 pounds, something like that. Like, whatever she's doing, it's working for her. Her losing 50 pounds is great. I don't have a thing to say. If she ever had an issue and she asked me for advice, I would say, if she reaches a plateau or something like that, that's when I would say something. I'm not going to say something if she's succeeding, then she's okay. It's like people see things in such black and white, and they're so threatened by change. They're so threatened by people just shifting their approach. And it's honestly, it's a nightmare, because it's hard enough to lose weight on your own. It's hard enough. And I feel for someone like Gabriella, who is in the public eye, because it's very difficult. Because she has to not only battle her own demons, but she has to battle the demons of the public. And that's tough. But it has to be done, because this has to change. Otherwise, we're not going to be okay. We aren't. And I admire her for doing that, even in the face of threatening everything. A lot of her brand, a lot of her stuff is about fat acceptance type stuff. It's about plus size clothing, plus size this, doing makeup and, making sure that you're still pretty and that kind of stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's a totally different aspect of life than your weight, in my opinion. So I don't have any issue with people doing that kind of stuff, but the issue is when those kind of things become other rhetoric, where you're now saying, I can, there's health at any size, there's no food, any food is okay, any amount is okay, any societal standards regarding size are toxic, like all these different things. It's like, no. Because what they do is they get, especially young fat women, to see the beauty aspect of it, and then they start brainwashing them. And that's why they were so upset about Gabriella, because she is using one of their methods, but for good instead of for evil. That's what I think. But let me guys know, oh my gosh, let me know you guys what you think in the comments below. I'd love to discuss this. And I will talk to you guys very soon. If you liked it, please do like the video. And, maybe show some love to Gabriella. We can kind of support her or offer a bit of a counterbalance to this type of hate that she's getting for something incredibly healthy that she's doing. Thank you guys so much. I will talk to you guys soon. Have a good day, night, whatever. Bye.